Oh, it's not that class. Yeah.
Not?
She isn't doing a live thing.
Who's she?
You're a woman. The boss of you for the next 6 weeks.
No, she's not.
Okay.
It's all very played out.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
And then you would think this would be automatic at this point.
I know. I just put on one light and sat down. It's apparently what happened.
Okay.
Here we are.
Have you been cutting your bangs?
Nope.
I like that.
I think I told you the last time I cut them.
I thought, okay. I wasn't sure if you were still trimming them.
I
like them.
I haven't since. Yeah.
It's cute. It's very, yeah, I think it's very French.
Yeah, you said that last time. I don't have a.
like,
That's French?
I think of it as being French, yeah. Right. Right.
So I have to go to Trader Joe's, I think.
Yeah.
I haven't died, so the tofu's probably fine.
There you go.
But I only have tomorrow's. And unless I come up quick with. Actually, I can look at the table. There are all these substitutions that you can do.
For
different protein sources, different this, different that.
Well, you still have tofu, right?
Only for one
For
meal.
one day? Okay. It goes so fast.
I ate that whole thing. 200 grams of tofu is not a small amount of tofu.
Oh, really?
It is a considerable amount.
That's good.
Yeah. It was like, those sprouted tofu packs?
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Okay.
So like 4 slices.
Yeah, that's good. And was it a decent amount of quinoa?
Yeah. Maybe like half a cup cooked. Maybe.
Okay. That's not bad.
And then I definitely didn't do as much arugula as I could have.
Right.
Because in order to get 68 calories of arugula, you have to eat this much.
Really?
It's a lot.
That's why I'm like, who's measuring their arugula?
I know, right? Stupid.
Yeah, are you
I
supposed
get
to
it.
weigh it? Or no. You have to figure out how much. Yeah, you have to do the math.
I know.
No.
That is gonna make or break nothing. I've decided.
Yeah. So Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
You can go in the morning. I'll be your dance class.
Actually, I think I'm gonna do the. I might not do dance in the morning.
Oh.
Because I have a dance at 5:30. So I either will be doing 2 dance classes and my challenge workout, or 1 dance class and my challenge workout, which is the normal.
Right. Okay.
Which is the new normal.
Okay. Cool.
My mom had a really negative reaction, as usual.
To what? To her workout?
Yes. No, not to her workout. To mine. To like whatever. Every time I ever am doing anything, she's like,
Oh, right.
Are you sure you're not unwell? She doesn't say that. But she basically is like, I don't want you to be sick in the head. Is the
She's
short.
like, why would you do that?
Kind of. Yeah. She acts like I'm getting a tattoo every time. She's like, and then her favorite question is there such a thing as too much exercise? And I'm like, Mom, trust me, I'm not there.
Right. Yeah. It's probably just for her, it's a lot. For her, like, she can't imagine doing that much.
Which is bullshit because she used to be a jock.
Yeah, you told me this.
So if it were like basketball or something, she'd be like, oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But because it's like pointless lifting of weights and stuff, she's like, oh.
Some people don't like exercise. In its like
she's
purest
like not one of
form.
those people.
Well, when you've been training her, does she enjoy it?
Yeah, she's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
She likes some more than others, but
Oh. I don't know.
no, she's just, there's this like assumption that I'm gonna go too far.
Oh.
That's the first assumption.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it's not so personal. Personal or not, I think she's like I think she thinks that that lady looks like a crazy, like, because I was like, do you mean you don't like how she looks? Like, is that the concern?
Yeah.
That if I were to somehow look like that, which obviously we're not even talking about, you would then not want to like be associated with me. What are we talking about right now?
What did she say?
She was like, basically, she's afraid of the idea that you can just be perennially not good enough. I was like, that's not the reason that I'm doing it. Like, where's the line? Is kind of like her. She's like, but you look great. I was like, sure, okay.
Oh, she just wants you to be like happy as you are.
I guess. But that's boring. Not that I'm not like not being happy, but like, okay, so, but like, how do you think I got here?
Right.
By doing something else different.
Mm-hmm. I mean, on one hand, it's really nice that she thinks you're perfect just as you are. It is, like, it's nice.
Okay.
As opposed to the opposite.
Okay.
Of a mother, which like definitely exists in abundance.
Yes, it
of
does.
a mother who's like,
Yeah.
Don't you think you could afford to skip the snacks or whatever? Like those mothers do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's good she swings in the opposite direction. I don't know. And I guess that's her form of like. I think she's worried for you.
Yes, but like not everything is potential source of worry and waiting. But like almost anytime I do anything, she's like,
yeah, I remember with the ice baths. She was like, why?
She's like, why is this for? Yeah. I'm like, what do you care? Lady? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She always, her mind goes right to, are there any like really bad implications that I, for whatever reason, I'm either ignoring or don't know about?
Which would be
like low self-esteem.
wow.
I think she thinks that if like trying to do this means that I'm not happy with myself. I think that's how it's getting interpreted.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe.
And that's not the case.
No.
So you're doing it. Yeah. Like, what did you tell her?
I don't have to tell her anything. I literally am like, I'm doing the thing. And she's like, at 11.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't even like, she doesn't ask me what I'm doing.
Yeah. At one point, my sister said something along those lines. She was like, I mean, not just at one point, several times. She's like, you're always doing something. Like, what are you doing now?
What's wrong with doing stuff?
Right? At the time, I was very like, huh? What do you mean? What do you mean? She's like, I don't know. Like, you quit coffee, and then you went vegan. Now you're doing yoga. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, like over time, you try things. You make adjustments.
Some people don't, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
I think it might also have to do with the fact that she doesn't want me to be like jacked. Because she must think it's like masculine or something. I don't know. Just wait, mother bird. She was like, because one she was, what did she say? She was like, and then one fine day you'll be Muhammad Ali. And I was like, but what if I want to be Muhammad Ali?
Right.
And she was like, then I guess it's fine. And I was like, okay, I want to be Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
It's not fine, of course, but
if you wanted to be.
I know, I was like, what's happening right now?
Right.
I don't know what it is. She was like, I shall have to think about this more.
Do you think any of it is like kind of the vegan conversation that when someone does something like that, people get like weird and defensive because they're not doing
I wish my mother would get defensive.
it.
It's impossible to make her defensive for that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I wish she had some healthy, like a healthy response that's like, oh, maybe I should. No part of her is like, oh, I'm not doing that. But yeah, for a lot of people, I think it is.
Just not for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she acts like I'm gonna break something. Like I'm gonna break my brain.
I think my mom would have that reaction too. Like, why are you doing this? Ooh. Ooh. Even the amount of driving that I did in LA, she was like, that's not what it's for.
What?
Yeah, she was stunned by the amount of driving I did. I was
What
like,
is it
yeah.
for?
Yeah, she's like, this is too much. Aren't you tired? Like, I couldn't do this. I don't know.
That's fine.
It's like,
You do drive to the west side.
yeah, I was driving a lot to the west side. She was astounded by it though. But I think like in comparison to what some people drive,
Generally, people don't live on the east side and work on the west side.
yeah.
And generally. But yeah, some people totally have long commutes.
Yeah, like every single day.
I guess the weird thing might be that you're choosing the commute. You're like choosing to do it. It's not like you're getting paid to show up there every day.
That's true.
Maybe that's why she's like, why is this so voluntary?
Yeah. And I remember having to be like, I don't know what I said. I remember some conversation with my mom in the car where I was like, I want to be great.
What?
Yeah. I was like, I want to be great. Like I want to be.
She just realized that when you told her that?
I guess so. She was like, oh. I was like, yeah, like if I can be a better version of myself, I want to do that.
And she was
She was
surprised?
like, oh. Well, I mean, like my mom, yeah. I think my dad was in the car too. She was like, what? Didn't really know what to say to that. I mean, like my mom, like one of the favorite things that she likes to say is like, I just got to be me. She's just got to be herself, and like maybe I'm good enough. Maybe this is good enough. And so, which I think like isn't a bad place, but yeah, it seems like the two opposite. You want like both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a false binary.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you can be perfect exactly as you are, which
Unless
you
you're
are,
trying to do something.
and be doing something. Yeah, exactly.
As long as I do agree that if you're going to do one of them, you have to do the acceptance one. If you're picking.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more important to accept yourself and approve of yourself than it is to get somewhere without having that approval.
Yeah.
So if you have to pick one for whatever reason, I think that's the one. And I do think a lot of people probably set impossible standards and pursue them in a way that actually does sort of mean that they're not okay with themselves. Like that, I think that happens.
Right.
But I don't think it has to be the case. Because, and I said this to her today, I was like, if I basically listened to what you were saying, I would never excel at anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you actually want to be great at something, like, yeah, you have to keep going.
Right.
I made an analogy that was like climbing mountains. It's cool, unless you're gonna die if you don't climb it. Like it's the relation. The relationship is important. Your relationship to what you're doing.
Right. And actually, both should exist because if you don't feel like you're good enough as you are, the like feeling
And carry you,
when
which
you
I think is the
reach it.
concern because
Yeah.
it's like it's never gonna be enough.
Yeah.
But that's if you're assuming that you aren't already.
Yeah. If you're like, I'm enough and I want to do this thing, then the thing it doesn't have that edge to it.
Also, for me, as you know, like as I've told you ad nauseum, I feel like I have a block against this,
Yeah, exactly.
and that is interesting to me,
Yeah.
and makes me want to like flick it away.
Mhm. I think it's great.
Thanks.
No, and I think it's like really good that you're doing the meal plan. You're like going all out.
I mean, it's been one day.
Still, you could have been like, no, fuck this.
Which is how I usually am.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work. Genuinely, that's the reason. It's not so much because of what it feels like to have to eat It's the having to reinvent the freaking wheel,
Right.
Be able to do anything automatically.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Numbers. I've never weighed food. Like, that's the next level.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure once you do it, it seems just normal and easy.
Because I think you start to, as you were saying, integrate the idea of what that looks like or what that is.
Yeah.
That starts to become something you're more familiar with. But it's like reading nutrition labels, right? Right now, there are a lot of new labels that I don't have to read because I have a general sense of what it's going to be.
Right.
But it's only because I was like, okay, and what does this say? Like 700 times.
Yeah.
But I think once you gain some familiarity, you like kind of know what.
Yeah. I was also just thinking like the numbers and weighing food too. Once that becomes normal, it's less daunting. Because literally all it is like you were doing it today. Like you put the tofu in a bowl and you weigh it. And
But I
that's
used so many bowls and plates.
it.
I was like, oh, there's got to be a better way.
I'm just saying it could be kind of more autopilot.
Yes.
But the initial
Is very.
taking it on.
It's mentally, for me, it's quite exhausting.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of trying to schedule a bunch of stuff, which again, like, depending on the kind of brain you have, this is like probably very easy for a lot of people. But my brain is like labors over it in this way that it's like I haven't been thinking about it for 15 minutes.
I think that would be good for me.
What?
You know what I always feel really guilty about with my eating habits?
Mm.
Is I like make something and then I walk away. And then I come back and I make more of it and I walk away and I come back and I make more of it.
I don't understand.
Like I'm thinking about this weighing of food. There's not like a specific amount that I'm ever making for myself. Does that make sense?
No, I'm not following.
Like literally I'll pour myself a bowl of cereal.
Okay.
Not like a shrimpy bowl. And then I'll eat it. And then I'll go back for another. And I'll eat it. And I'll go back for another. And I'll eat it.
Okay.
Like there's no limit. There's no like set point.
Well,
And I always feel like, what am I doing? Like stop going back for thirds.
to me, that means that you don't eat enough.
That I'm still hungry. I don't know if I'm still hungry or I just like want more of the thing.
I mean,
I might not be.
the fact that you're like quite small
Right.
means that you can't be going back for unnecessary thirds all the time because you don't eat small. Sounds true.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's always interesting to pay attention to like what you're. One of the things I don't like about doing diet things is that I have a much higher desire for carbs than I'm ever allowed, and that I don't like it.
At least this allows you carbs.
Everything has to.
Don't
Unless
change
it's
it.
like, you mean like keto?
Yeah.
Fuck those people. Not the people. Just kidding. I'm so not into ever trying keto.
What is keto? It's just fats. What is it?
Protein and fat. Everything I don't like. I had to put away 2 scoops of protein powder this morning. That was not easy.
Really?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I was drinking it till like after lunch. But I'm glad because I was eating my my sad amount of oatmeal with nothing in it.
No sugar?
It's called gruel, I think.
Just
Sugar?
water?
Are you nuts? Sugar? No.
Yeah, that's gruel.
Yeah.
Just
That's like
oats and water?
that's like prison food.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And by prison, I don't mean like Rikers. I mean wherever the Count of Monte Cristo was for them. I was like this with the cinnamon.
Oh, it smelled so strongly of cinnamon this
Did it?
morning. Yeah, I mean, like in a good way. I
Maybe I got it everywhere. I don't know. But yeah, and then I had to count buoys. I didn't count them. I weighed them. I have buoys on the tree that are really blue. This is what they look like.
Whoa!
Blue buoys on the tree.
That didn't take long. Blueberries.
No, I
But
didn't.
are you actually going to eat them? They're
I
so
have to.
precious.
I know, but this is part of my problem. I see them as so precious that I'm like, I've got to never touch them.
Yeah.
It defeats the whole point. Defeats the whole
Right.
purpose.
Yeah. Mm.
I didn't weigh them though. It's so comical, the things that like I've never even considered limiting. Like fruit, I'm never like I've had too many blueberries. Ever.
Ever?
Never.
Berries don't make sense to me.
What do you mean?
Because I'm like, great, and the carton's done in one sitting. Who's eating like 5 raspberries and walking away? I can't do that.
I don't think that's bad.
To eat the full thing. It just feels like there's not enough.
So you don't get berries because there's not enough? So you have fewer berries in your life because there's not enough berries.
Yes.
Okay. This makes sense.
Because if you finish some, because basically I finish it in one sitting and I feel like I'm not supposed to be. I don't like feeling that way, so I'm like, fine, I just won't deal with you.
But there's
Also, they're really expensive.
when they're not in season. Or you just mean objectively.
Objectively, if I'm like, maybe that's not that bad. I'm eating like $4 of blueberries.
It's really cheap in California compared to everywhere else. That's from the places that I've been.
I don't know why I'm so cheap about blueberries.
See, clearly, they don't last.
Like
They're
a
not-
$4 snack? That's a lot.
What do you normally pay for snacks, whatever
I
that
don't
is?
normally eat snacks.
Right.
Yes.
So
I don't know. I just don't go there.
don't go to snacks. I can't even understand that.
Really?
Yeah, I eat constantly.
I had a lot of ice cream today.
I
Somehow
still did.
you going on this diet makes me want to eat everything.
Doesn't really.
I ate quite a bit of. Yep. I went for it.
Cool.
Also, I don't think I'm gonna do ramen.
No?
No.
Didn't like it? It's carbs and sodium.
I know, but the noodles aren't good. I think I'm too bougie now.
Probably.
I'm like, these noodles suck.
They probably do suck.
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
I want hand-pulled noodles. Can I just get
Oh my lordy. I wonder how many years we have to wait until hand-pulled noodles are back on York.
that? I never got to try. I never tried. Maybe I can make my own.
You're gonna hand-pull noodles?
You don't think I can?
I know you can.
Shh.
That's basically what you do.
How do they do it again?
You just like keep stretching it and doubling it and stretching it.
Right,
and
and
doubling it
wrapping
stretching
around.
it and doubling it, stretching it and
I
doubling
mean, I think it would be funny just to try.
it. It would be funny.
I'm sure I would fail so hard.
Probably because it looks quite difficult.
Yeah. I think like that guy, he talks about making like 100 bowls of noodles a day to become a noodle master.
Yeah. Can we stop talking about noodles?
Okay.
Because I really like carbs.
Are you allowed rice noodles?
I'm allowed anything. It
Oh,
just needs to get.
Needs to fit
Computed.
within the caloric.
Yeah. So one of the things that the like carbohydrate that I'm allowed for lunch and dinner is expressed as like this much potato or this much rice or this much pata.
You're allowed wheat, right?
Gluten-free pata is what she, and I don't know what the point is of that. Why would you want gluten? What
That's what
From
I'm
an-
wondering.
from a nutritional standpoint, like why does that matter?
If she doesn't think wheat is good,
But then what the hell are those even made of?
like that's what I noticed on the meal plan. Gluten-free pasta.
Hmm.
I mean, it could be rice, it could be quinoa.
Right.
Like the oatmeal, it didn't seem like there was any wheat on there.
I'm fucked. Really into wheat. I love gluten.
Yeah,
Remember when I ate a whole loaf of olive loaf?
yeah. You weren't feeling great after that.
I lost my mind. I was like,
Maybe the gluten.
I couldn't think of anything else that I'd done differently. Okay, I don't want to talk about bread either.
I miss my gluten-free days.
What?
They were fun.
Why?
That's insane.
Why was it fun?
I mean, first of all, it forced me to be more creative, which I think is always good for me because I get into a rut. It was crazy. I have never been more hungry in my life. I just remember like the first 2 weeks adjusting, I felt like a maniac. I'm not really selling this very high. But I wasn't eating rice. I wasn't really like substituting. So I was just like I was like eating more protein, but I felt insane. And the best way I came up of explaining it was it felt like I no longer had insulation.
Oh, so you were just a skeleton rattling in the wind?
No, it wasn't like I lost weight or anything. It's
No, did it feel like you were a skeleton rattling?
Oh,
Insulation? No, insulation.
like in
That's
a house.
cold!
In a house, it's like bread kind of just sits there and is like stuffing.
Is it?
At least that's what it felt like. And then it felt like I no longer have those stuffing stores, like for just in case. Because I guess like everything else gets burned. I don't know what it was. Anyway, that's how I felt. I felt like quite ungrounded for the first 2 weeks, and then I felt really good.
What really good? What kind of really good? How good are we talking?
And then it kind of felt like I had cleaned out my closet. Like I felt cleaner. Yeah. That everything was being like burned efficiently.
I don't like it. I don't like gluten free.
I also think that they say that in Europe the gluten is better. I don't know how much to believe in that.
I don't even know what gluten is, frankly.
Right.
I just know I love it. I just know I love it.
I don't know what I like anymore.
You don't know what you like anymore?
Yeah. I'm like craving a diet change and I don't know what to eat. Salads? I know this is exciting. I feel like I've explored every dietary option.
Have you?
I've tried most foods at this point in my life.
Well, none of the non-vegetarian things, for example.
That's true.
I don't know if I would call it most foods. So what is it that you want? Like what you're craving what? Physically? Or like mentally?
Maybe mentally. I just find food can be like a really good, at least for me, it can be like a marker. Like changing your diet can mark like a new phase in your life.
I never do it. I've done it literally once.
Wow. Okay.
No, twice.
Yeah.
I miss tuna.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the best was?
Mhm.
I eat this this was my like apples and almond butter. A can of tuna with veganese or something like that. Mash that shit up.
Mhm.
Salt and maybe a bit of salt, pepper, and quackers. Phenomenal.
So gross. Is there fake tuna?
I have a can in here.
Oh yeah. Have
Yeah.
you tried it?
No,
What if it's great?
I don't know.
I bet you could make fake. You could make your own.
Make your own what?
Oh, tuna. It has to actually taste like tuna. Like, how would you get that fishy taste?
I don't know.
Oh. Sea moss.
That gets kind of killed if you put veganese in it.
The fishy taste?
Good
Jack-
fish doesn't actually taste fishy,
Wouldn't jackfruit be good?
texture wise.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about this. I can't eat any of these things.
Okay.
I can't eat bread the same way I can't eat tuna.
Tuna. We made some dal. Made a good lunch. Things are going well. You get popcorn tonight? No?
Although she said she really likes cocoa powder on popcorn. I was like, oh, interesting.
Cocoa powder. Didn't she's plain popcorn with cocoa powder?
She seems like she does. She was like, oh, it's just like chocolate covered. I was like, no, it isn't.
No, it isn't. It's so not.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Although who knows? Like this afternoon, I was like pretty. I wasn't that grumbly, but I was a little bit like, oh, what am I even allowed? And then I was very happy with my lunch.
And the lemon turned out well?
I mean, I ended up putting lemon also on the arugos.
Yes.
This was very lemon centric.
Love a good lemon dish. I don't know. Just lemon loaded up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. I will get bored of the. I will get bored though. So I have to figure out different marinades that are like maybe mustard and I don't know, like zero carbon footprint
Yeah.
marinades. You mean mustard?
Just thinking mustard and tofu. I guess tofu will just take on whatever flavor you give
Tofu
it.
is anything, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, I don't know, I find it tofu can be a little bit difficult to make actually.
Yeah.
Because to keep it soft, but to also get it to absorb anything, actually is not as obvious as it seems. So I think it can often be tasteless and it can often be hard. And I'm not a fan of like, I think fried tofu is an abomination.
Really?
An abomination. I only like soft tofu. Or grilled tofu. But it, again, it has to be really like well done and it's not as easy as it looks. And where was I going with this? Don't remember.
Fried tofu is nice. Like for me, firmer the better. Do you squeeze the water out of it?
Mm-hmm. But the watery marinade today actually like just made it soft. It already
Wow.
was. It wasn't like I don't know. What happened in War and Peace?
Rostov. Yeah, we were with Nicholas. And he and Mary, they just get on like a house on fire.
Yeah, they do. Like
Like a Moscow on fire. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. She's just apparently amazing in his presence.
Yeah. She's graceful and elegant and poised, and she's a woman for the first time.
Seriously. And he
It's just relaxed.
doesn't know what to make of her.
Yeah.
He's very taken by her spirituality.
Yes. He said Sonia had zero spirituality, and I thought that was a bit intense. I was like, really? Maybe I've just forgotten this whole family because it's been a long time. I did not even recognize.
I don't think they're a very spiritual family. That's all. Because I guess when Natasha got into it, is that a new thing?
For her, was it?
Yeah. I couldn't really remember if she like went with her family or she went by herself, right?
No, I don't think she goes anywhere by herself.
Okay.
Sonia wrote to Nicholas releasing him from their engagement. He took it seriously, but she wrote it with the impression that since Natasha and Andrew's relationship is being rekindled, it's going to be illegal for Mary and Nicholas to get married because apparently that's a thing. So she isn't quite earnest. She's not quite in earnest when she writes to him, being like, "Oh, sure, no, go ahead, marry anybody."
Yeah. Yeah. Mama Rostov,
Yes,
she
I
put
did.
up a fuss and said, "You have to cancel it." Please.
Yes, but to be
Please.
fair,
Yeah.
all their shit burned down in Moscow. So whatever
That's
their money
true.
issues were, they're even worse.
That's okay. All right. I'll give you that.
It's so strange to like be an overt leech. Like Rostov's like gonna be like, hey, want to get married? And everybody knows that Mary's money is gonna get spent on the Rostovs. Like, that's just kind of a weird.
It is weird. I guess that's how it was.
Why would she marry him?
She loves him.
But why?
I don't know. Were we in her head? In the last few
No,
chapters? Not really.
not much. Except for when she was like stressed about him coming over and was like, how will I act? How will I stand? Where will I be? What will I say? And then it all went out the window and she was just quite impromptu, and as was he.
It just sounds like it's very easy with them.
Yeah.
For that inexplicable reason, you know? It's very easy and at the same time like very surprising.
Easy is really nice. I remember that. So we're at chapter 9.
Book 12, chapter 9. The officer and soldiers who had arrested Pierre treated him with hostility, but yet with respect.
Okay.
In the guardhouse to which he was taken.
Classic Tolstoy. With hatred and respect.
In their attitude toward him could still be felt both uncertainty as to who he might be, perhaps
and
a very
certainty.
ah
Sorry. I'll shut up.
wait. It's getting there. Okay. Both uncertainty as to who he might be, perhaps a very important person, and hostility as a result of their recent personal conflict with him.
But when the guard was relieved next morning, Pierre felt that for the new guard, both officers and men, he was not as interesting as he had been to his captors. And in fact, the guard of the second day did not recognize in this big, stout man in a peasant coat the vigorous person who had fought so desperately with the marauder and the convoy, and had uttered those solemn words about saving a child. They saw in him only number 17 of the captured Russians, arrested and detained for some reason by order of the High Command. If they noticed anything remarkable about Pierre, it was only his unabashed, meditative concentration and thoughtfulness, and the way he spoke French, which struck them as surprisingly good. In spite of this, he was placed that day with the other arrested suspects, as the separate room he had occupied was required by an officer.
All the Russians confined with Pierre were men of the lowest class, and recognizing him as a gentleman, they all avoided him, more especially as he spoke French. Pierre felt sad at hearing them making fun of him.
That evening, he learned that all these prisoners, he probably among them, were to be tried for incendiarism. I should be tried for that. On the third day, he was taken with the others to a house where a French general with a white mustache sat with 2 colonels and other Frenchmen with scarves on their arms. Interesting. With the precision and definiteness customary in addressing prisoners and which is supposed to preclude human frailty, Pierre, like the others, was questioned as to who he was, where he had been, with what object, and so on.
These questions, like questions put at trials generally, left the essence of the matter aside, shut out the possibility of that essence's being revealed, and were designed only to form a channel through which the judges wished to answer the accused. The judges wished the answers of the accused to flow so as to lead to the desired result, namely a conviction. As soon as Pierre began to say anything that did not fit in with that aim, the channel was removed, and the water could flow to waste. Pierre felt, moreover, what the accused always feel at their trial, perplexity as to why these questions were put to him. He had a feeling that it was only out of condescension, or am I pronouncing that right? Okay. This expedient of an inquiry and trial seemed unnecessary. It was evident that any answer would lead to conviction. When asked what he was doing when he was arrested, Pierre replied in a rather tragic manner that he was restoring to its parents a child he had saved from the flames. Why had he fought the marauder? Pierre answered that he was protecting a woman, and that to protect a woman who was being insulted was the duty of every man. That they interrupted him. For this was not to the point. Why was he in the yard of a burning house where witnesses had seen him? He replied that he had gone out to see what was happening in Moscow. Again, they interrupted him. They had not asked where he was going, but why he was found near the fire. Who was he? They asked, repeating their first question, which he had declined to answer. Again, he replied that he could not answer it.
Put that down. That's bad, very bad, sternly remarked the general with the white mustache and red flushed face.
On the fourth day, fires broke out on the Zubovsky rampart.
Pierre and 13 others were moved to the coach house of a merchant's house near the Crimean Bridge. On his way through the streets, Pierre felt stifled by the smoke which seemed to hang over the whole city. Fires were visible on all sides. He did not then realize the significance of the burning of Moscow and looked at the fires with horror.
He passed 4 days in the coach house near the Crimean Bridge, and during that time learned from the talk of the French soldiers that all those confined there were awaiting a decision which might come any day from the marshal. What marshal this was, Pierre could not learn from the soldiers. Evidently for them, the marshal represented a very high and rather mysterious power.
These first days, before the 8th of September, when the prisoners were had up for a second examination, were the hardest of all for Pierre.
Pauvre Pierre. Chapter 10. On the 8th of September, an officer, a very important one judging by the respect the guards showed him, entered the coach house where the prisoners were. This officer, probably someone on the staff, was holding a paper in his hand and called over all the Russians there, naming Pierre as the man who does not give his name. Glancing indolently and indifferently at all the prisoners, he ordered the officer in charge to have them decently dressed and tidied up before taking them to the marshal. An hour later, a squad of soldiers arrived, and Pierre, with 13 others, was led to the Virgin's Field. It was a fine day, sunny after rain, and the air was unusually pure. The smoke did not hang low as on the day when Pierre had been taken from the guardhouse on the Zubovsky rampart, but rose through the pure air in columns. No flames were seen, but columns of smoke rose on all sides, and all Moscow, as far as Pierre could see, was one vast charred ruin. On all sides there were waste spaces, with only stoves and chimney stacks still standing, and here and there the blackened walls of some brick houses. Pierre gazed at the ruins and did not recognize districts he had known well. Here and there he could see churches that had not been burned. The Kremlin, which was not destroyed, gleamed white in the distance, with its towers and the belfry of Ivan the Great.
Huh.
Hmm?
It was white.
It was white?
Seems like it.
Yeah. Gleamed white. You think they painted it recently?
I don't know.
The domes of the new convent of the Virgin glittered brightly, and its bells were ringing particularly clearly. These bells reminded Pierre that it was Sunday and the feast of the Nativity of the Virgin, but there seemed to be no one to celebrate this holiday. Everywhere were blackened ruins, and the few Russians to be seen were tattered and frightened people who tried to hide when they saw the French.
I'm getting nowhere. It was plain that the Russian nest was ruined and destroyed, but in place of the Russian order of life that had been destroyed, Pierre unconsciously felt that a quite different, firm French order had been established over this ruined nest. He felt this in the looks of the soldiers, who, marching in regular ranks briskly and gaily, were escorting him and the other criminals. He felt it in the looks of an important French official in a carriage and pair driven by a soldier, whom they met on the way. He felt it in the merry sounds of regimental music he heard from the left side of the field, and felt and realized it especially from the list of prisoners the French officer had read out when he came that morning. Pierre had been taken by one set of soldiers and led first to one and then to another place with dozens of other men, and it seemed that they might have forgotten him or confused him with the others, but no. The answers he had given when questioned had come back to him in his designation as, quote, a man who does not give his name, and under that appellation, which to Pierre seemed terrible, they were now leading him somewhere, with unhesitating assurance on their faces that he and all the other prisoners were exactly the ones they wanted, and that they were being taken to the proper place. Pierre felt himself to be an insignificant chip, fallen among the wheels of a machine whose action he did not understand, but which was working well.
He and the other prisoners were taken to the right side of the virgin field to a large white house with an immense garden not far from the convent. This was Prince Sherbitov's house. Sherbitov's house, where Pierre had often been in other days, and which, as he learned from the talk of the soldiers, was now occupied by the marshal, the Duke of Eckmühl Davout.
They were taken to the entrance and led into the house one by one. Pierre was the sixth to enter. He was conducted through a glass gallery, an anteroom, and a hall, which were familiar to him, into a long, low study at the door of which stood an adjutant.
Davout, spectacles on nose, sat bent over a table at the further end of the room. Pierre went close up to him, but Davout, evidently consulting a paper that lay before him, did not look up. Without raising his eyes, he said in a low voice,
"Who are you?"
Pierre was silent because he was incapable of uttering a word. To him, Davout was not merely a French general, but a man notorious for his cruelty. Looking at his cold face as he sat like a stern schoolmaster who was prepared to wait a while for an answer, Pierre felt that every instant of delay might cost him his life, but he did not know what to say. He did not venture to repeat what he had said at his first examination. Yet to disclose his rank and position was dangerous and embarrassing. So he was silent, but before he had decided what to do, Davout raised his head, pushed his spectacles back on his forehead, screwed up his eyes, and looked intently at him.
"I know that man," he said in a cold, measured tone, evidently calculated to frighten Pierre.
The chill that had been running down Pierre's back now seized his head as in a vice.
"You cannot know me, General. I have never seen you."
He is a Russian spy, Davout interrupted, addressing another general who was present, but whom Pierre had not noticed.
Davout turned away. With an unexpected reverberation in his voice, Pierre rapidly began.
"No, Monseigneur," he said, suddenly remembering that Davout was a duke. "No, Monseigneur, you cannot have known me. I am a militia officer and have not quitted Moscow."
"Your name?" asked Davout.
Bezhukov. Great. That didn't take long, Pierre.
What proof have I that you are not lying?
"Monseigneur!" exclaimed Pierre, not in an offended, but in a pleading voice.
Davout looked up and gazed intently at him. For some seconds they looked at one another, and that look saved Pierre. Apart from conditions of war and law, that look established human relations between the two men. At that moment, an immense number of things passed dimly through both their minds, and they realized that they were both children of humanity and were brothers.
Oh, both children of humanity.
What? How can that moment be happening right now?
Just as
If this were if this were a movie, that would be so wildly unjustified. It would be hilarious. You'd be like, "What?"
like they just gaze at each other.
Yeah, that they're just like.
Hey. At the first glance, when Davout had only raised his head from the papers where human affairs and lives were indicated by numbers, Pierre was merely a circumstance. And Davout could have shot him without burdening his conscience with an evil deed. But now he saw in him a human being. He reflected for a moment.
"How can you show me that you are telling the truth?" said Davout coldly.
He remembered Rambal and named him and his regiment and the street where the house was.
"You are not what you say," returned Davout.
In a trembling, faltering voice, Pierre began adducing proofs of the truth of his statements.
But at that moment, an adjutant entered and reported something to Davout.
Davout brightened up at the news the adjutant brought and began buttoning up his uniform. It seemed that he had quite forgotten Pierre.
When the adjutant reminded him of the prisoner, he jerked his head in Pierre's direction with a frown and ordered him to be led away. But where they were to take him, Pierre did not know. Back to the coach house or to the place of execution, his companions had pointed out to him as they crossed the virgin field.
He turned his head and saw that the adjutant was putting another question to Davout.
"Yes, of course," replied Davout, but what this yes meant, Pierre did not know.
Pierre could not afterwards remember how he went, whether it was far or in which direction. His faculties were quite numbed. He was stupefied, and noticing nothing around him, went on moving his legs as the others did till they all stopped, and he stopped too. The only thought in his mind at that time was, who was it that had really sentenced him to death? Not the men on the commission that had first examined him. Not one of them wished to or evidently could have done it. It was not Davu, who had looked at him in so human a way. In another moment, Davu would have realized that he was doing wrong, but just then the adjutant had come in and interrupted him. The adjutant also had evidently had no evil intent, though he might have refrained from coming in. Then who was executing him, killing him, depriving him of life? Him, Pierre. Pierre, with all his memories, aspirations, hopes, and thoughts. Who was doing this? And Pierre felt that it was no one.
It was a system, a concurrence of circumstances.
A system of some sort was killing him. Pierre, depriving him of life, of everything, annihilating him.
Chapter 11.
Mm.
From Prince Cherbatov's house, the prisoners were led straight down the Virgin's Field to the left of the nunnery, as far as a kitchen garden in which a post had been set up. Beyond that post, a fresh pit had been dug in the ground, and near the post and the pit, a large crowd stood in a semicircle. The crowd consisted of a few Russians and many of Napoleon's soldiers who were not on duty, Germans, Italians, and Frenchmen in a variety of uniforms. To the right and left of the post stood rows of French troops in blue uniforms with red epaulets and high boots and shakoes.
The prisoners were placed in a certain order, according to the list. Pierre was sixth, and were led to the post. Several drums suddenly... Are we both just, confident that this isn't going to happen?
I'm not.
You're not? Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's going to,
Yeah.
but we literally might be watching it happen.
It's not going to
The fact that it was his guess that he was being executed made me be like, yeah, he's not going to. He's wrong about everything.
Yeah. Great. Several drums suddenly began to beat on both sides of them, and at the sound, Pierre felt as if part of his soul had been torn away. He lost the power of thinking or understanding. He could only hear and see, and he had only one wish, that the frightful thing that had to happen quickly. Pierre looked round at his fellow prisoners and scrutinized them.
The two first were convicts with shaven heads. One was tall and thin, the other dark, shaggy, and sinewy with a flat nose. The third was a domestic serf, about 45 years old, with grizzled hair and a plump, well-nourished body. The fourth was a peasant, a very handsome man, with a broad, light brown beard and black eyes. The fifth was a factory hand, a thin, sallow-faced lad of 18 in a loose coat.
Pierre heard the French consulting whether to shoot them separately or two at a time. In couples, replied the officer in command in a calm voice. There was a stir in the ranks of the soldiers, and it was evident that they were all hurrying, not as men hurry to do something they understand, but as people hurry to finish a necessary but unpleasant and incomprehensible task.
A French official wearing a scarf came up to the right of the row of prisoners and read out the sentence in Russian and in French.
Then two pairs of Frenchmen approached the criminals and at the officer's command took the two convicts who stood first in the row. The convicts stopped when they reached the post and, while sacks were being brought, looked dumbly around as a wounded beast looks at an approaching huntsman. One crossed himself continually, the other scratched his back and made a movement of the lips resembling a smile. With hurried hands, the soldiers blindfolded them, drawing the sacks over their heads, and bound them to the post.
12 sharpshooters with muskets stepped out of the ranks with a firm, regular tread and halted 8 paces from the post. Pierre turned away to avoid seeing what was going to happen. Suddenly, a crackling, rolling noise was heard, which seemed to him louder than the most terrific thunder, and he looked around. There was some smoke, and the Frenchmen were doing something near the pit, but with pale faces and trembling hands. 2 more prisoners were led up. In the same way, and with similar looks, these two glanced vainly at the onlookers with only a silent appeal for protection in their eyes, evidently unable to understand or believe what was going to happen to them. They could not believe it because they alone knew what their life meant to them, and so they neither understood nor believed that it could be taken from them.
Again, Pierre did not wish to look and again turned away, but again the sound as of a frightful explosion struck his ear. And at the same moment he saw smoke, blood, and the pale, scared faces of the Frenchmen who were again doing something by the post, their trembling hands impeding one another. Pierre, breathing heavily, looked around as if asking what it meant. The same question was expressed in all the looks that met his.
What the hell are they doing?
I don't know.
On the faces of all the Russians and of the French soldiers and officers without exception, he read the same dismay, horror, and conflict that were in his own heart. But who, after all, is doing this? They are all suffering as I am. Who then is it? Who? Flashed for an instant through his mind.
Sharpshooters of the 86th, forward! Shouted someone. The fifth prisoner, the one next to Pierre, was led away, alone. Pierre did not understand that he was saved, that he and the rest had been brought there only to witness the execution. With ever-growing horror and no sense of joy or relief, he gazed at what was taking place. The fifth man was the factory lad in the loose cloak. The moment they laid hands on him, he sprang aside in terror and clutched at Pierre. Pierre shuddered and shook himself free. The lad was unable to walk. They dragged him along, holding him up under the arms, and he screamed. When they got him to the post, he grew quiet, as if he suddenly understood something. Whether he understood that screaming was useless or whether he thought it incredible that men should kill him, at any rate, he took his stand at the post, waiting to be blindfolded like the others, and like a wounded animal looked around him with glittering eyes.
Pierre was no longer able to turn away and close his eyes. His curiosity and agitation, like that of the whole crowd, reached the highest pitch at this fifth murder. Like the others, this fifth man seemed calm. He wrapped his loose cloak closer and rubbed one bare foot with the other.
When they began to blindfold him, he himself adjusted the knot, which hurt the back of his head. Then, when they propped him against the blood-stained post, he leaned back and, not being comfortable in that position, straightened himself, adjusted his feet, and leaned back again more comfortably. Pierre did not take his eyes from him and did not miss his slightest movement.
Probably a word of command was given, and was followed by the reports of 8 muskets, but try as he would, Pierre could not afterwards remember having heard the slightest sound of the shots. He only saw how the workman suddenly sank down on the cords that held him, how blood showed itself in 2 places, how the ropes slackened under the weight of the hanging body, and how the workman sat down, his head hanging unnaturally and one leg bent under him. Pierre ran up to the post. No one hindered him. Pale, frightened people were doing something around the workman. The lower jaw of an old Frenchman with a thick mustache trembled as he untied the ropes. The body collapsed. The soldiers dragged it awkwardly from the post and began pushing it into the pit.
They all plainly and certainly knew that they were criminals who must hide the traces of their guilt as quickly as possible.
Pierre glanced into the pit and saw that the factory lad was lying with his knees close up to his head and one shoulder higher than the other. That shoulder rose and fell rhythmically and convulsively, but spadefuls of earth were already being thrown over the whole body. One of the soldiers, evidently suffering, shouted gruffly and angrily at Pierre to go back, but Pierre did not understand him and remained near the post, and no one drove him away.
When the pit had been filled up, a command was given. Pierre was taken back to his place, and the rows of troops on both sides of the post made a half-turn and went past it at a measured pace. The 24 sharpshooters with discharged muskets, standing in the center of the circle, ran back to their places as the companies passed by.
Pierre gazed now with dazed eyes at these sharpshooters who ran in couples out of the circle. All but one rejoined their companies. This one, a young soldier, his face deadly pale, his shako pushed back and his musket resting on the ground, still stood near the pit, at the spot from which he had fired. He swayed like a drunken man, taking some steps forward and back to save himself from falling. An old, non-commissioned officer ran out of the ranks and, taking him by the elbow, dragged him to his company. The crowd of Russians and Frenchmen began to disperse. They all went away silently and with drooping heads.
"That will teach them to start fires," said one of the Frenchmen.
Pierre glanced round at the speaker and saw that it was a soldier who was trying to find some relief after what had been done, but was not able to do so. Without finishing what he had begun to say, he made a hopeless movement with his arm and went away.
I don't know what it is tonight. I feel more sucked into the book.
Maybe all the drugs you're on. Maybe because you love Pierre.
I don't know. It's like very vivid to me right now. And I also, there's something I didn't realize that soldiers weren't okay with killing. it seems like quite a modern problem of like being able to actually like see and acknowledge your enemy.
Really, I would think it would be the opposite because we are more now detached from who we're
Now
killing.
it's just in a drone or whatever it is. Yeah, I guess so.
I guess I haven't read that. I haven't read that many like firing squad scenes, I suppose, but I think it's told very well, and it's really sad. And it is. I think it is powerful that nobody nobody knows what it is. Like including people do.
Yeah.
Not like, well, that's that was that's good now. Like,
Yeah.
grasping at straws for you to even understand.
Totally.
And the fact that there was one kid who was like, I do think the larger the scale is, the less like specialized obviously the people are. So if it was like if it's a small conflict, you have the most trained people there and stuff. But if something gets bigger and bigger, then it starts to be every like random 18-year-old kid. And then I imagine it's different.
Yeah.
Rather than people who enlist or I don't know. Not that killing is like easy for people who enlist, but
Right. And I guess it's it would be different like in the context of a battle to like tie someone up and shoot them. Where's the sport in that? I don't know. It's like, yeah, he doesn't have a chance.
yeah, it's not sport.
And I think in in like a combat, you can at least give yourself like the, the reassurance that like if it wasn't him, it would be me.
Yeah. Which it would.
Yeah, like I fought to survive.
But this feels gratuitous.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it isn't for anything. Chapter 12.
After the execution, Pierre was separated from the rest of the prisoners and placed alone in a small, ruined, and befouled church.
Toward evening, a non-commissioned officer entered with 2 soldiers and told him that he had been pardoned and would now go to the barracks for the prisoners of war. Without understanding what was said to him, Pierre got up and went with the soldiers. They took him to the upper end of the field, where there were some sheds built of charred planks, beams, and battens, and led him into one of them. In the darkness, some 20 different men surrounded Pierre. He looked at them without understanding who they were, why they were there, or what they wanted of him. He heard what they said, but did not understand the meaning of the words and made no kind of deduction from or application of them. He replied to questions they put to him, but did not consider who was listening to his replies, nor how they would understand him. He looked at their faces and figures, but they all seemed to him equally meaningless.
From the moment Pierre had witnessed those terrible murders committed by men who did not wish to commit them, it was as if the mainspring of his life, on which everything depended and which made everything appear alive, had suddenly been wrenched out, and everything had collapsed into a heap of meaningless rubbish. Though he did not acknowledge it to himself, his faith in the right order of the universe, in humanity, in his own soul, and in God had been destroyed. He had experienced this before, but never so strongly as now. When similar doubts had assailed him before, they had been the result of his own wrongdoing, and at the bottom of his heart he had felt that relief from his despair and from those doubts was to be found within himself. But now he felt that the universe had crumbled before his eyes and only meaningless ruins remained. and this not by any fault of his own. He felt that it was not in his power to regain faith in the meaning of life.
Around him in the darkness, men were standing, and evidently something about him interested them greatly. They were telling him something and asking him something. Then they led him away somewhere, and at last he found himself in a corner of the shed among men who were laughing and talking on all sides.
Well then, mates, that very prince who, some voice at the other end of the shed was saying, and with a strong emphasis on the word who.
Sitting silent and motionless on a heap of straw against the wall, Pierre sometimes opened and sometimes closed his eyes. But as soon as he closed them, he saw before him the dreadful face of the factory lad, especially dreadful because of its simplicity, and the faces of the murderers, even more dreadful because of their disquiet. And he opened his eyes again and stared vacantly into the darkness around him.
Beside him, in a stooping position, sat a small man of whose presence he was first made aware by a strong smell of perspiration which came from him every time he moved. This man was doing something to his legs in the darkness, and though Pierre could not see his face, he felt that the man continually glanced at him. On growing used to the darkness, Pierre saw that the man was taking off his leg bands, and the way he did it aroused Pierre's interest.
Having unwound the string that tied the band on one leg, he carefully coiled it up and immediately set to work on the other leg, glancing up at Pierre.
Okay, sorry. That's not the greatest of times.
He carefully coiled it up and immediately set to work on the other leg, glancing up at Pierre. While one hand hung up the first string, the other was already unwinding the band on the second leg. In this way, having carefully removed the leg bands by deft circular motions of his arm following one another uninterruptedly, the man hung the leg bands up on some pegs fixed above his head. Then he took out a knife, cut something, closed the knife, placed it under the head of his bed, and seating himself comfortably, clasped his arms round his lifted knees and fixed his eyes on Pierre. The latter was conscious of something pleasant, comforting, and well-rounded in these deft movements, in the man's well-ordered arrangements in his corner, and even in his very smell, and he looked at the man without taking his eyes from him. "You've seen a lot of trouble, sir, eh?" the little man said, suddenly. And there was so much kindliness and simplicity in his sing-song voice that Pierre tried to apply, but his jaw trembled, and he felt tears rising in his eyes. The little fellow, giving Pierre no time to betray his confusion, instantly continued in the same pleasant tones. "Eh, lad, don't fret," said he, in the tender sing-song caressing voice old Russian peasant women employ. "Don't fret, friend. Suffer an hour, live for an age. That's how it is, my dear fellow. And here we live, thank heaven, without offense. Among these folk, too, there are good men as well as bad," said he, and still speaking, he turned on his knees with a supple movement, got up, coughed, and went off to another part of the shed.
"Hey, you rascal!" Pierre heard the same kind voice saying at the other end of the shed. "So you've come, you rascal? She remembers. Now, that'll do."
And the soldier, pushing away a little dog that was jumping up at him, returned to his place and sat down. In his hands he had something wrapped in a rag.
"Here, eat a bit, sir," said he, resuming his former respectful tone as he unwrapped and offered Pierre some baked potatoes. "We had soup for dinner, and the potatoes are grand."
Pierre had not eaten all day, and the smell of the potatoes seemed extremely pleasant to him. He thanked the soldier and began to eat.
"Well, not they all right?" said the soldier with a smile. "You should do like this."
He took a potato, drew out his clasped knife, cut the potato into 2 equal halves on the palm of his hand, sprinkled some salt on it from the rag, and handed it to Pierre.
"The potatoes are grand," he said once more. "Eat some like that."
Pierre thought he had never eaten anything that tasted better.
"I thought so too." "Oh, I'm all right," said he. "But why did they shoot those poor fellows? The last one was hardly 20.
"'Tis," said the little man.
What did the little man say?
"'Tis, ah, what a sin," he added quickly, and as if his words were already waiting ready in his mouth and flew out involuntarily, he went on, "How was it, sir, that you stayed in Moscow?"
"I didn't think they would come so soon. I stayed accidentally," replied Pierre.
"And how did they arrest you, dear lad, at your house?"
"No, I went to look at the file, and they arrested me there and tried me as an incendiary."
"Well, there's law there. Where there's law, there's injustice. put in the little man.
Have you been here long? Pierre asked as he munched the last of the potato.
Aye. It was last Sunday they took me, out of a hospital in Moscow.
Right. Are you a soldier then?
Yes, we were soldiers, the Absheron regiment. I was dying of fever. We weren't told anything. There were some 20 of us lying there. We had no idea, never guessed at all.
Do you feel sad here? Pierre inquired.
How can one help it, lad? My name is Platon. Platon. Did we meet him already?
No.
Platov.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. My name is Platon, and the surname is Karatiev, he added, evidently wishing to make it easier for Pierre to address him. They call me Little Falcon in the regiment. I was one to help feeling sad. Moscow, she's the mother of cities. How can one see all this and not feel sad? But the maggot gnaws the cabbage, yet dies first. That's what the old folks used to tell us, he added rapidly.
What? What did you say, Pierre?
You know, the maggot gnaws the cabbage.
And then dies?
And then dies. Because you don't like cabbage.
Yep, dies first.
I don't know. Is that a maggot dies? Is it that like a maggot's lifespan is shorter than a cabbage's?
That'd be pretty intense.
Is it? It might be.
Well, because cabbages aren't alive in the way that
Right. That's true too.
cabbages don't have what you might refer to as a lifespan.
That we know of.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Who? I? Said Karatayev. I say things happen not as we plan, but as God judges, he replied, thinking that he was repeating what he had said before. It's the same thing. Maggot, cabbage. Shit happens. And immediately continued.
Well, and you have a family estate, sir, and a house. So you have abundance then, and a housewife, and your old parents, are they living still, he asked.
And though it was too dark for Pierre to see, he felt that a suppressed smile of kindliness puckered the soldier's lips as he put these questions. He seemed grieved that Pierre had no parents, especially that he had no mother.
A wife for counsel, a mother-in-law for welcome, but there's none as dear as one's own mother, said he. Well, and have you little ones? He went on asking.
Again, Pierre's negative answer seemed to distress him, and he hastened to add,
Never mind, you're young folks yet, and please God may still have some. The great thing is to live in harmony.
It's all the same now, Pierre could not help saying.
Ah, my dear fellow, rejoined Karatai. I don't know how to fucking say that. Karatiev. I don't know. Never decline a prison or a beggar's sack.
He seated himself more comfortably and coughed, evidently preparing to tell a long story.
Well, my dear fellow, I was still living at home, he began. We had a well-to-do homestead, plenty of land, we peasants lived well, and our house was one to thank God for. When father and we went out mowing, there were 7 of us. We lived well. We were real peasants. It so happened.
These people are just like, let me tell you my life story.
Who else was like that?
Ramal.
The French guy.
Yeah. And Platon Karatayev told a long story of how he had gone into someone's copse to take wood, how he had been caught by the keeper, had been tried, flogged, and sent to serve as a soldier.
Well, lad, and a smile changed the tone of his voice, we thought it was a misfortune, but it turned out a blessing. If it had not been for my sin, my brother would have had to go as a soldier. But he, my younger brother, had 5 little ones, while I, you see, only left a wife behind. We had a little girl, but God took her before I went as a soldier. I come home on leave, and I'll tell you how it was. I look and see that they are living better than before. The yard full of cattle, the women at home, 2 brothers away earning wages, and only Michael, the youngest, at home. Father, he says, all my children are the same to me. It hurts the same, whichever finger gets bitten, but if Platon hadn't been shaved for a soldier, Michael would have had to go. Called us all to him and, will you believe it, placed us in front of the icons. Michael, he says, come here and bow down to his feet. And you, young woman, you bow down too. And you, grandchildren, also bow down before him. Do you understand? He says. That's how it is, dear fellow. Fate looks for our head, but we are always judging. That's not well. That's not right. Our luck is like water in a dragnet. You pull at it and it bulges, but when you've drawn it out, it's empty. That's how it is. and Platon shifted his seat on the straw. After a short silence, he rose. Well, I think you must be sleepy, said he, and began rapidly crossing himself and repeating, Lord Jesus Christ, Holy Saint Nicholas, Frola and Lavra, Lord Jesus Christ, Holy Saint Nicholas, Frola and Lavra, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us and save us, he concluded, then bowed to the ground, got up, sighed, and sat down again in a heap of straw. That's the way. Lay me down like a stone, O God, and raise me up like a loaf, he muttered as he lay down, pulling his coat over him. What prayer was that you were saying? Asked Pierre. Eh? Murmured Platon, who had almost fallen asleep. What was I saying? I was praying. Don't you pray?
Yes, I do.
You missed a really good story.
Ugh, what was it?
I almost think you should read it.
Oh.
It was the most confusing thing I've ever read.
I heard lay me down like a stone, raise me up like a loaf.
Well, that was just now.
Oh.
His life story was confusing.
Of course it was.
I was like, that's how it is. That's how it is. That's how it ended.
And then Pierre's like, tell me about that prayer.
He's like, I'm looking for something. There's a hole in my spirit.
I do pray, said Pierre. But what was that you said, Frola and Lavra?
Well, of course, replied Platon quickly. The horses, saints. One must pity the animals too, eh? The rascal. Now you've curled up and got warm, you daughter of a bitch, said Kartayev, touching the dog that lay at his feet, and again turning over, he fell asleep immediately.
Great. Sounds... What's that like? Yeah, it's like, let me tell you my story. Okay, great. Good night. Not even. Just like, yeah. Love it. I want that. I want to be like that.
Like him?
Unself-conscious. Yeah. Unconscious, really. Sounds of crying. I want to be exactly like...
Unconscious and
Lacan.
self-conscious are two slightly different things. Yeah. But are they?
What is unconscious? Have we looked that up yet?
Unconscious? Oh no, we never figured out.
What's the difference between like a coma and being unconscious and being asleep?
Well, I think we know the difference between being unconscious and being asleep.
I don't, apparently.
You
So I
can
was
wake
like,
someone up from sleep.
and you can't wake someone up from unconsciousness?
Well, not necessarily. I suppose you can give them smelling salts or slap them in the face.
What the hell is going on there? Yeah.
Let's get some smelling salts just to see what it smells like.
Do they still sell them?
I mean, I'm sure. Somewhere. Somehow.
Are they just smelly salts?
I don't know what it is. I don't think it's salt at all. It's probably like sulfur.
It's just pepper.
And people are like,
You smell pepper. It's not a good thing.
what?
If you like a handful of pepper in the face,
Yeah, you get sneezy.
sneezy. Do you know anything about the cinnamon challenge?
A spoon of cinnamon?
Yeah, people are doing that for a while.
They're crazy.
You die.
Because it's so dry?
No, like it's a lot.
I know,
A
but
lot
I
of
used to
cinnamon is
I used to
like-
eat that much cinnamon in like a concoction every morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, with chili and stuff. It sucked, but
How's that for?
fitness challenge.
Ugh. I don't know how much, but I think you can actually like die from taking too much cinnamon. I'm serious. I think it can happen.
I mean, you can die from too much
Mustard too. Mustard powder.
Mustard powder.
I think that's what it is.
What's mustard powder?
Powdered mustard.
I know, but like who uses
Mustard seeds?
Who uses it?
Yeah.
Frola and Lavra.
Oh yeah. Sounds of crying and screaming came from somewhere in the distance outside, and flames were visible through the cracks of the shed. But inside it was quiet and dark. For a long time, Pierre did not sleep, but lay with his eyes open in the darkness, listening to the regular snoring of Platon, who lay beside him, and he felt that the world that had been shattered was once more stirring in his soul. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not more. No more. I just needed a kind old man to talk to me with a new beauty and on new and unshakable foundations.
Pierre's such a cheap date. You just do a little jig and he's like,
Same time, a lot of people are.
yes. He literally thought his whole world had collapsed though today.
Yeah.
And then literally is now born again on unshakable ground as a result of a chat of no great consequence.
Yeah, did I miss
with
something?
A guy. No. But you can read it.
Why is he like, oh yeah, things are alright?
Because the guy's cheerful even though he's in prison. I don't know. Imagine if you went back and read it and it was like this life-changing thing that I just was like weirdly, that I weirdly made seem like a weird little. It wasn't. They know.
Maybe he's alright because Platon's so alright. He's like,
That's what it.
that's what you said?
No,
Okay.
because he's cheerful and he's in prison. So.
Wow.
Like I said, cheap date.
Yeah.
One more?
One more. Chapter 13. 23 soldiers, 3 officers, and 2 officials were confined in the shed in which Pierre had been placed and where he remained for 4 weeks.
When Pierre remembered them afterwards, they all seemed misty figures to him except Platon Kartaev. Why can't we say this?
Mm-hmm.
Who always remained in his mind a most vivid and precious memory and the personification of everything Russian, kindly, and round. When Pierre saw his neighbor next morning at dawn, his first impression of him, as of something round, was fully confirmed. Platon's whole figure, in a French overcoat girdled with a cord, a soldier's cap, and bast shoes, was round. His head was quite round, his back, chest, shoulders, and even his arms, which he held as if ever ready to embrace something, were rounded. His pleasant smile and his large, gentle brown eyes were also round.
So round.
Yeah.
That's why he feels okay. Because he's like, oh, this is just geometrically pleasing to me. Platon Karatayev must have been 50, judging by his stories of campaigns he had been in, told as by an old soldier. He did not himself know his age and was quite unable to determine it. But his brilliantly white, strong teeth, which showed in 2 unbroken semicircles when he laughed, as he often did, were all sound and good. There was not a gray hair in his beard or on his head, and his whole body gave an impression of suppleness and especially of firmness and endurance.
His face, despite its fine, rounded wrinkles, had an expression of innocence and youth. His voice was pleasant and musical, but the chief peculiarity of his speech was its directness and appositeness. I don't know how to say that. It was evident that he never considered what he had said or was going to say, and consequently the rapidity and justice of his intonation had an irresistible persuasiveness.
His physical strength and agility during the first days of his imprisonment were such that he seemed not to know what fatigue and sickness meant. Every night before lying down, he said, Lord, lay me down as a stone and raise me up as a loaf. And every morning on getting up, he said, I lay down and curled up. I get up and shake myself. Good, that's a great saying. And indeed, he only had to lie down to fall asleep like a stone, and he only had to shake himself to be ready without a moment's delay for some work, just as children are ready to play directly they awake. He could do everything, not very well, but not badly. He baked, cooked, sewed, planed, and mended boots. He was always busy, and only at night allowed himself conversation, of which he was fond, and songs. He did not sing like a trained singer who knows he is listened to, but like the birds, evidently giving vent to the sounds in the same way that one stretches oneself or walks about to get rid of stiffness. And the sounds were always high-pitched, mournful, delicate, and almost feminine. And his face at such times was very serious. What do you think that sounds like? That's good. Yeah, I like it.
Having been taken prisoner and allowed his beard to grow, that seems like a weird sentence. He seems to have thrown off all that had been forced upon him, everything military and alien to himself, and had returned to his former peasant habits.
Soldier on leave, shirt outside breeches, he would say.
He's full of sayings. He did not like talking about his life as a soldier, though he did not complain and often mentioned that he had not been flogged once during the whole of his army service. When he related anything, it was generally some old and evidently precious memory of his Christian life, as he called his peasant existence. The proverbs of which his talk was full were, for the most part, not the coarse and indecent soldiers employ, but those folk sayings, which, taken without a context, seem so insignificant, but when used appositely, suddenly acquire a significance of profound wisdom.
He would often say the exact opposite of what he had said on a previous occasion, yet both would be right. He liked to talk, and he talked well, adorning his speech with terms of endearment and with folk sayings, which Pierre thought he invented himself. But the chief charm of his talk lay in the fact that the commonest events, sometimes just such as Pierre had witnessed without taking notice of them, assumed in Karatiev's a character of solemn fitness. He liked to hear the folk tales one of the soldiers used to tell of an evening. They were always the same. But most of all, he liked to hear stories of real life. He would smile joyfully when listening to such stories, now and then putting in a word or asking a question to make the moral beauty of what he was told clear to himself. Karatyev, I'm saying it different every time I
I know. It's really hard.
Karatyev,
Yeah.
I don't know, had no attachments, friendships, or love as Pierre understood them, but loved and lived affectionately with everything life brought him in contact with, particularly with man, not any particular man, but those with whom he happened to be. He loved his dog, his comrades, the French, and Pierre, who was his neighbor. But Pierre felt that in spite of Karatyev's affectionate tenderness for him, by which he unconsciously gave Pierre's spiritual life its due, he would not have grieved for a moment at parting from him. And Pierre began to feel in the same way toward Karatyev.
To all the other prisoners, Platon Karatyev seemed a most ordinary soldier. They called him Little Falcon or Platosha, chaffed him good-naturedly, and sent him on errands. But to Pierre, he always remained what he had seemed that first night, an unfathomable, rounded, eternal personification of the spirit of simplicity and truth.
Platon Karatyev knew nothing by heart except his prayers. When he began to speak, he seemed not to know how he would conclude.
Sometimes Pierre, struck by the meaning of his words, would ask him to repeat them, but Platon could never recall what he had said a moment before, just as he could never repeat to Pierre the words of his favorite song, Native and Birch Tree and My Heart is Sick, occurred in what? Occurred in it, but when spoken and not sung, no meaning could be got out of it. He did not and could not understand the meaning of words apart from their context. Every word and action of his was the manifestation of an activity unknown to him, which was his life. But his life, as he regarded it, had no meaning as a separate thing. It had meaning only as part of a whole of which he was always conscious. His words and actions flowed from him as evenly, inevitably, and spontaneously as fragrance exhales from a flower. He could not understand the value or significance of any word or deed taken separately.
He's the Buddha.
I like him.
Me too.
He's round.
So round. Like Buddha.
Oh, we're going back to Princess Mary.
Really? Is she gonna find Prince Andrew?
Seems no reason not to.
She's gonna find Prince Andrew, and she's gonna be like, no, let me take care of him. And there's gonna be a fight between her and Natasha.
Over which one should marry whose
Which
brother?
one? No, over who gets to bathe Prince Andrew.
I'm sure Natasha's going to respond differently to Mary this time.
Yeah, probably.
She's going to be like, oh.
I don't know. They still don't like each other. Maybe now they do. I don't know.
Yeah, I think probably now Natasha suddenly has had a change of heart.
What was her heartbreak for?
She thought she was like lame and ugly and stupid and
That was true.
just like like made her uncomfortable, and she was really judgy about it.
Why do I remember it being the other way around?
Well, because what's her name was like a little horrified as well, but then she wrote her a letter being like, "Listen, I'm so sorry. Like I don't know what happened, but I can't. Like let's not. Like we have to start over. We're gonna be best friends." And then Tasha was like, "I don't want to marry you." And that was the end of their exchange.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that wants a little.
Yeah, she was like, "Please tell your brother I changed my mind."
Oh,
Oh. Oh.
I think I finally like dropped into the book.
Cool.
Finally, book 12.
Ah.
It just feels very real to me for some reason tonight. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, can we go back to the beginning? No. For some reason, I'm like, oh, why haven't I been reading like this up till now? I've kind of been skimming the surface. You know? Not
I
getting
mean-
into that juiciness. Yeah.
I only know because like I feel like I spent half the time being like, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
So I do get it,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, we also could have different dysfunctions with like we could have done like different unusual things with the book.
Yeah. Maybe that's kind of the point. Like, right, because if you're standing outside judging it, right, you can't, because you're like, what's happening? What's happening? You can't really be in it. And it does ask for you to kind of like hang those up at the door and just kind of be taken along for the ride. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was skimming the surface, but I definitely was like I wanted explanations.
Right.
And it's not like I always want explanations, but I want explanations if the occurrences and dynamics are confusing and prompt them. Like I'm not like explain to me this basic thing that just happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not that I want everything explained, but weird stuff happens, or like surprising stuff happens, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you're given no.
I still remember when suddenly it was like Helena.
Yeah.
That was the biggest turnaround.
Yeah. Was all of a sudden overnight the worst? And I was like, what the shit?
Yeah. It was very sudden. And I remember being like, where am I supposed to be right now? Like I remember like really trying to justify it. I was like, oh, I think like we're in Pierre's head right now.
Right.
And so it is like a characterization. And it's not fair because he's just taken by jealousy right now. But then
Yeah,
that never got.
We both had elaborate explanations for it,
But still, like that never got sorted.
no.
Really.
No.
We never got to see another side of her.
No,
Ever.
not really.
I do find that perplexing. For the amount that she's in this book, yeah, she's just like, what's the right word for her? She's like a Cheshire cat. Like, we don't get any access.
No,
So
and you
what's
see
going
whatever
on?
you want to see.
Yeah.
So if it serves for her to be like the beauteous center of the room, then that's what she is that day. And if she's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, his handling of her pretty weird.
Okay.
I find it very funny.
Funny?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny.
Great.
Yeah,
This also more and more makes me want to visit Russia, actually.
me too. Me too. Which I have literally never had a thought about.
Yeah.
Never. I mean, the other kind of weird thing is to like, this is such a different context of Russia than the like predominant narrative right now,
Right.
which is conspicuous. Like, it's not a little quiet country that no one's noticed. It's like, it's pretty, it's out there.
Yeah.
But I almost like I understand a string of dictators much more now than I did before.
Really?
I mean, I never had any like theory about it because I didn't know shit from shit.
Yeah.
But stuff about the culture now makes me be like, okay,
Ah,
susceptible.
okay. I don't think I know. Yeah, I don't think I know anything about cultures.
What?
Like, I think like all my generalized stereotypes are off. Makes me think that I don't know. I should I should educate myself more. Yeah. Like I had an idea about Russians before reading this that I don't think holds water.
I didn't have that much of an idea. But actually, no, that's not true. My ideas are very contemporary. So they're based on like post. So like the fact that they're very, very mistrusting.
Yeah.
But that's because of having, I think, because of having a series of dictators.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that that's like I would say that's a more recent cultural trend,
Right.
and that like that mistrusting thing seems quite pervasive. But again, like I don't know where it was at before some of the stuff that
Mm.
happened in more recent history.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not seeing a lot of mistrust here.
No, I find there's so much heart, actually. I think that's the surprising thing for me. Maybe that shouldn't be surprising. Maybe that's just like, hello, yes, that's humankind for you.
I think I kind of think of cold cultures from cold places as being cold.
Mm. Yeah, me too.
So like to be like really intense and fiery and passionate in Russia just seems like it's cold. Don't you want to conserve your energy? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Do
I
you
thought
think
of
the
them as
same
being a
of
bit
like
bombastic.
Swedish and
Yeah, I feel like all of those people must be really low key. Because it's cold. I don't know. I have
Yeah.
weird things about the
right?
temperature.
I can see that.
And I'm sure it's not that weird, frankly. Like, I bet you that living for hundreds of years in a place with a climate like does actually impact the way that people live. Not, I bet it clearly does. But how and where and stuff. Also, I think like food is such a primary way of relating for me that I also feel just confusion and emptiness when it comes to groups of people whose food I don't understand. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, I do not understand their food.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I really like that actually. It's kind of like, so what drives you?
Like, what do you guys?
What do you live for?
What do you guys do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. like pierogies and
Which
borscht.
are like dumpling-ish.
I guess so.
Nothing wrong with the dumpling. Except that there's too much carbs.
Gluten-free dumpling. Fish.
Fish?
Don't they eat a lot of fish? No,
They
I'm
probably
thinking of just
pickle
like
things.
pickled sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut's excellent. Is it Russia?
I'm sure it's in Russia too. But yeah, like lots of pickled, lots of canned stuff. Lots of like because what are the seasons there? Like
probably
I
don't
think of
eat
lots of like root vegetables, things that grow in the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah, because they don't live in LA.
Yeah.
There's not like blueberries and arugula sprouting all over the place.
Yeah. Let's go to Russia.
I mean,
My parents have been there twice, maybe. For orchestra,
okay.
they were playing. Like they traveled with the orchestra.
Okay, cool. So there's a reason.
Yeah, they didn't just go for like.
If
their
people are like, I'm
honeymoon.
going to Russia, I'd be like, wait, what?
I have a friend who went to Russia.
Why?
Was she doing a theater piece there? It might have been like she's been a few times. I think the first time she did a theater piece there, and then her sister's husband is a Russian diplomat or something.
Okay.
So she went to go visit them in Petersburg.
Shady.
Yeah. And then what was the thing that happened where they actually got booted out? They had to leave. She went to visit them and then they had to leave because a bunch of the diplomats were like kicked out.
It's such a weird place, dude.
Yeah.
It's such a weird place.
Yeah, and I remember at the time I was like, you went to Russia twice? Why would you do that? It's so far.
Isn't that far, is it?
Well, I guess you're used to traveling that far. Yeah.
You know, I think that when we are done with this and when we inevitably watch the BBC miniseries,
Right.
I think I'm going to be pissed that everyone's British.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be a little like, what are you guys doing?
Right. You think they're all just doing British accents?
I'm positive they are.
On BBC.
And it's so like Russia centric. Like it's so about Russia.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm gonna be like, what are you guys doing? This isn't like a bedroom drama or whatever you call them.
Yeah. Right. Oh God.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Really? What's happening with your throat?
I don't know.
You don't have a cough or anything?
No.
What?
I heard you cough once today. I was like,
I heard you cough once today. I did cough today.
Yeah. Do you feel good?
No, something was like caught. It was not good. It's like, this is a pain in the ass right now.
Yeah.
That's how I'm gonna feel when I'm in line at Trader Joe's.
Oh.
Want to come so that I can buy more than 2 tofus?
I'm actually kind of excited. I'm like, ooh, Trader Joe's sounds like a fun outing. As long as it's not.
It's an adventure because I haven't been in 2 months.
Yeah.
It's right there. Isn't that so weird?
Yeah.
I haven't been in 2 months.
Why?
I know. Should we just not?
No, they're not. Do you think it's better at night or during the day?
I honestly don't know how the patterns are going.
You know how there's a traffic report? Can there be like
A grocery report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The line right now at Trader Joe's It's about like 15 minutes. Do you think if we called, they would tell us how long the line is?
Depends on if they have someone standing outside or like how easy it is to run out.
Right.
It's probably pretty easy. Of course, they have someone outside.
Yeah, they do.
Do you like how I don't even know how it works? I've literally never been to a grocery store line.
You've never been to a grocery store line.
I've never
You've been missing out. It's where all the people are. It's the only socialization that we get.
You're right. I'm gonna go rub shoulders with some peeps who also need tofu.
Are you going to be really tempted to stock up on
What? Yeah, I am. That's why you have to come so I can buy 4 nut butters.
what would I don't know what I would buy.
I think it would make sense to make a list for this one.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
What would I buy?
I can't buy anything now.
Right.
I can only buy boring shit. So I want cans of black beans. They have these Cuban style black beans. Have you ever had that?
Yeah. No.
Quite. I was gonna say that looks like
I
a
said,
fake.
yeah. I was like, yeah, to your black beans, not your question.
Right.
I might have some. Not that we shouldn't go.
Yeah, so they have a can of black beans that's not just plain, there's like some spices or whatever in it.
Ooh,
It is pretty great.
spices.
Yeah. That's pretty great. They're pretty great. Just eat that shit with RICE.
That sounds good.
I wonder if I should get potatoes.
It's up to you.
I think I would rather have a grain. Like today, I would have rather had the quinoa than a potato randomly with tofu. I think. I don't know. I'm not very imaginative when it comes to food. I don't have that creative je ne sais quoi.
Mm-hmm. You get a grain. What's your favorite grain? You could go crazy. You get some millet.
What? I mean, I can show you the food substitution charts.
You could get. What do I really like?
Bulgur.
I like wheat berries.
Oh, is that wheat though?
I don't know what they are.
What the fuck is wheat
What's the
berry?
other thing that I'm thinking of that I'm like, yeah, this is good. It's not barley. What is it?
It's a grain.
Can't think of it. But that's not gluten free too. So all these exciting grains. People don't.
Whole wheat kernel wheat berry.
It is.
Yeah. Dang, they look good.
Right? Plump little.
They look like
Plump
fucking
little
bulgur, dude.
sweetheart. It is bulgur that I'm thinking of. Bulgur's the stuff in.
You just now were like.
Tabbouleh, right?
Not
Traditionally?
always. Oh, traditionally maybe. Parboiled groats.
Groats.
Of several different wheat species, most often from durum wheat.
Durum wheat.
There's so many words I don't know in this article. Bulgur porridge is similar to frumenti.
Farro. That's the one I like.
Farro. Farro's good. Me a farro.
Yeah.
Farro.
Freeka. I think you need all of these.
One
for every day. Amaranth.
Do I like amaranth? I can't remember.
Kamut.
Farro's good as F.
Yeah, it is. Teff.
Amaranth.
What's teff?
Teff is like, I think they have that in do they eat that in Ethiopian food?
What does it say?
Amaranth.
Teeny tiny grains. High in calcium. And gluten free.
So the problem is I can't really buy that much greens.
Rika. Greens.
Like this, I can buy like a thing of farro, a thing of this, a thing, whatever grains they have.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can do that with arugos and mixed greens and whatnot.
Because it'll go bad?
Yeah.
Like, you can get them frozen.
I mean, that might actually not be that bad because then, I mean, I just have to mix it with the green and kind of do it like a cooked, right? A
Yeah.
cooked thing rather than a salad thing.
Yeah, because I think it's just that you're supposed to get some vegetables.
Mhm.
And then fresco isn't that bad. For getting those other things more regularly.
That's true. I just have it in my head that they're like, that stuff is expensive.
It's slightly more expensive. It's like
arugula
instead
and
of
Trader
like
Joe's is
$2
so
for kale, spend $2.50.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that the arugula at Fresco's was like $4.90.
In a box, the boxes? I think it's 4.
Okay.
I know this is scintillating stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I'm excited about tomorrow's workout. It's gonna be way better than today. Today sucked. I want you to do today's workout.
Oh my god, I'm kind of curious, but I just don't think I'd be able to do it.
I know, but it'd be fun.
It'd be really funny. It'd be funny. It wouldn't be fun, it would be funny.
It would be a bit of both.
Maybe I'll get you to show me right after this.
Oh my god.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Oh,
Yeah, I think I heard you